Okay, so welcome, welcome, welcome. Uh, let me turn all this stuff off here. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen with you. Well, before we do that, how are things going in class? Would anyone like to have any comments, good, bad, indifferent? How are things going?
I think it's going amazing.
I have a little, I don't know why, but I have a little difficulty in my discussion question this time. I have no clue why.
Okay. Well, let's look at before we go, let's look at the discussion today and kind of mull it over a little bit. And then we'll just take it on from there. Debbie, anything? You good?
I just have some questions on the IRB form, and you're going to go over that, so maybe you'll have to go over it.
Yeah, that's a big one, the IRB form. This is the one that you would normally fill out because they're not really going to give you an opportunity to do that short form that we did earlier unless all you're doing is looking at other stuff that's already been done. So if you're just looking at research, then you can go through that. But if you're actually going to participate in a study where you're dealing with people, you're going to have to fill out the IRB form we're looking at today. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll just go over that if that's okay.
That'd be great. I think my major question or my major confusion is, am I reviewing data or am I doing this as if I'm really going to do the research?
Okay, so that's actually a good question, and here's the response to that. Now, what we're doing is we are creating the proposal. Whenever you do research, you first create a proposal. So we are doing it as if we would be collecting the data, because that's what a proposal is for. Because we have to write everything as if we were doing it, because that's what we have to do to get IRB approval. Now, we don't have the time to go out and gather the data, so we are not going to gather it. So we're not going to go through the full IRB approval process. So with that being said, let me, this can get confusing in a class. So let me just kind of restate that. We are writing the IRB form as if we are going to go gather data, because the IRB form is what you fill out. It's basically a request to go deal with people and get data. But in our class time, we are not going to gather data. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. I just wanted to make sure I was on the right track.
Well, things can kind of get a little muddled when we do it for a class and we're not actually doing it. So I just want to, I can explain it and I can explain it very poorly sometimes. So I just want to make sure it's clear. Okay, so now here's our form. Comes right from here. Let me go, I'm just going to go right back from scratch. Because remember, we do not want to rewrite the forms. We want to use the material they give us, because when the IRB folks see the material, their boilerplate, they know that it has been vetted for completeness and everything else. They do not want to have to read through all the boilerplate material. That should be there. One of the quickest way to get your IRB review denied is to try to come up with something other than what they have, because they don't want to read it. They want to read the piece that you have to put in there, and they want to make sure the boilerplate stuff is there. So
simply use that form and answer the questions on the form, or put it in a format?
Exactly what you just said. I'm going to show you. So I click that, then I click the overview. I'm just showing people how to get there in case they're not sure. And then IRB full review form download. And when you download it, it should look like this. Does everybody see my the Word doc?
Yeah.
Okay, so don't think you have to reinvent everything, because there's a lot of stuff once we get past here that, oh my goodness, that's a lot of stuff that is just boilerplate in there. And you know what? That's fine. Leave it because
Okay.
we don't want to take anything out that doesn't need to be out. So here we go. Title. What's the title of your study? You've already done that one on the other IRB form that we did. Project summary, and you're just going to type it right in here. I would not make it bold red, just make it, black text, non-bolded. Type it in there. Project summary. What is enough detail? Well, here's the George method of doing that, which may help you or may not help you. But here's the way that I always do it when I do these. Project summary. What is it? This study will the study will investigate. I always try to use a different term than look at. Use it. Investigate how gum chewing affects memory retention or whatever it may be. The study will have participants take a test prior to chewing gum, and they will also have the participants take a test while chewing gum, or if there's two separate groups, I'll say this test will put participants into two separate groups, a control group and a gum chewing group, and each group will be given the same test, and then the results will be compared. It's that simple. What we want to do when we put in our summaries, we want to make it way too complex. That's just a natural part of the deal. We want to make things extremely complex, cumbersome, and hard to read. So don't do that. I have made all those mistakes for you in the past. So learn from my mistakes. Keep it brief, keep it simple, and keep it understandable. So you want to write it as if you're going to present it to a group of school kids. So if you can get a third grader to understand it, you can get me to understand it, and that means that you really know what you're doing. And then the research question, you already have your research question from the last time. So just copy and paste that in there. Make sure it is a question. Have any of you ever been through things like audits and things like that?
Yes.
Yeah. Now the secret to going through an audit is to give them just the information they request. If you give them more information than they request, that gives them more stuff to look at. Just give them what they're asking. Research question, put the question in there. You don't have to preface it with anything else. You don't.
Yeah.
Was that, Sandra?
The hypothesis, we need to do that too, right? With the null what's it called?
Then if you have a hypothesis, and just right now, that just the question that you're trying to answer. So take your hypothesis and put it into the form of a question.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I have a little trouble with that, with the like the statistics in it, but I will get it. I have two.
Okay, don't worry about statistics yet. We'll get there.
Okay.
Let's just worry about the question or what we're going to do. Now, if you want to, and you're happy with your hypothesis, just copy and paste it right there. Don't make it overly burdensome on you.
Okay.
Foreseeable benefits. What are the potential benefits associated with this project? What, if any, is the immediate benefit of research to the participant? If it is none, guess what we do? None. That's it. Moving on.
Wow.
Okay. If there is a benefit, then I think one of the people that did this set it up so they'd give them like a gift card or something. So it's a $10 Starbucks gift card, or whoops, I don't even know how to write 10 anymore. Sorry. $10 Starbucks gift card.
Yeah, that was one.
card will be given to participants. And why is it important that we know this? Well, we want to know if there's any coercion, right? Remember the Stanford prison experiment? We want to make sure that we're not crossing any lines because we operate in the gray areas. Nothing is definitive. So we just have to be completely upfront on it about that. How does the research benefit the population of persons similar to participants? Will it give the overall population some extra information, some extra knowledge? How will it benefit? How does this research contribute to closing the gap in the professional literature? Now, this is a good one that you want to answer, and you can answer it in a couple of sentences. Remember, none of these are going to be multiple paragraphs long. Succinct, to the point. How does this research contribute to closing a gap in professional literature? Well, if you're doing, Sandra, which one are you doing?
The survey.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
The survey.
Oh, the survey? Okay, do you know which survey, which study you're doing?
Personality and musical preference.
Okay, so what is the benefit of personality and musical preference? Or the how will it close the gap? Well, this research will help close the professional literature on how personalities are affected by certain music, or how some personalities move towards specific types of music. This gives us insight into, and then you could just give like half a sentence and we're good.
Okay, that helps.
Yeah, because this is the part where people try to get really, really verbose. They try to make this really long when it just needs to be to the point. So remember, you're writing this for a third grader. And I don't say that in a demeaning sort of way. They just need to know very clearly what you're doing and why it matters. And if you can explain that to a third grader, then you are very clear. That's why I keep saying that. And I don't mean for you to think of the IRB folks as third graders. Just, that wouldn't be very nice of me to say. Okay.
Yeah, I had my tutor. She wanted me to research what is on that subject already on research there and what can we fill in. And I was like, oh my gosh, got overwhelmed.
Yeah, it's easy to get overwhelmed when you take off too big of a chunk. That's an absolute easy thing to do. And in the piece that we're going to be doing this week with the statistical piece, people get overwhelmed quick, but that's because they're trying to bite off too much. So I'm going to give directions all week on how to hopefully just kind of work through everything. Because it's easy to do that. So you're not alone. I get overwhelmed sometimes when I'm doing a study and I just stop and step back. I'm like, wait a minute, we've done this before. Come on. but it's natural. So you'll get that feeling over and over again. You kind of get used to it after a while. You can recognize it.
Okay.
Okay, so how many total subjects? What's the age range? Straightforward. Inclusion and exclusion criteria. Just means who's going to be included, who's not going to be included. So exclusion for everyone is anyone under the age of 18 will be excluded. Because if you do things with people under the age of 18, there's a whole different process you have to go through. So that's an easy exclusion criteria. And if there are any others, if you're doing, obviously, let's say if we're doing a study and it looks at only males or females in a certain, for a certain task, how do males perform task X or whatever it may be? Well, your inclusion criteria would definitely have to be male. Exclusion, not male. I mean, inclusion and exclusion are that simple. And so a lot of you won't have a lot of exclusion criteria other than under 18 years of age. How will they be assessed for inclusion or exclusion? Well, if it's the age thing for exclusion, they're going to be asked their age. So it's that simple. How will you know whether you can include these folks or not include them? And then who will assess? And you, as the answer for this, generally is you as the researcher will assess. If it's something that needs to be clinically assessed or whatever, you have to put that in, but we're not doing anything that would require that.
Okay, that's too easy. Wow.
Yeah, we don't want to make it hard. We want to make it so it's clear and simple. Proceed to identify and mitigate risks to human subjects. Okay. All right. I am going to give everyone some information to put in here because they're getting way too muddy here. I didn't realize that one when I first opened this up. I'm going to give everybody a link. So, and the link is to is what I always use. So I'm going to just copy and paste it from the IRB things that I went through about mitigating risk. Because for the most part, you're just going to put a statement. There is no risk greater than everyday life. And we're going to give them a link to a place where they can go and get help if they need it, if they do feel harmed from the test. But this, for what we're doing, will not be a big issue.
Oh, a question that I have, it asks, are all members of the research team NIH certified? Did we need to do that NIH training?
You know, there is some issue right now that I have not been able to overcome about going in and paying for that NIH, because you should have to pay for it. So your answer on this sheet will be yes. But you do not have to go in and get the certification, because I have not been able to find out yet. And it's been on my part. I haven't put enough effort into finding out about how to go in and get that certification done free, because it should be done. It should be free from the school. That's why. Okay. Consenting process. So you're just going to say who will discuss informed consent. Your name goes there. Your title will be the researcher. Is that the same language? So, oh, and you see the language part here? How can you, if you only speak English, one of your exclusions will be English speakers, because you can't explain it to somebody in Vietnamese, Spanish, whatever language it may be, if you don't speak that language. So that could be and part of the exclusion criteria. Hey, Mike, welcome.
Hi.
So that's how that can kind of go out. So you just want to make sure that the person is able to read English, if that's the language that you're using. And if they can't, then they have to be excluded from the research, because we don't want to do any incidental harm that we don't know about. Is kind of the bottom line. And just like if you do speak multiple languages, then you can include multiple people who speak multiple different languages, whatever languages those may be. And this question, how will you train that person to properly follow any privacy issues? Just say researcher is NIH certified. That's how they're going to be. So that's the bottom line. Are all the members? Yes. They will be. Steps to prevent confidentiality of data is, how do you know, what are you going to do so people just don't look at your data? And generally what you want to do is you're going to keep the data separate. So you're going to have a key and you're going to keep the data separate. I'm going to unshare and then the research methods. This is just step by step of what you're going to do. I'm going to unshare my screen for a minute.
I have one more question, if that is okay.
Yeah, and while you're asking that, I'm going to be...
Okay. It says host for data collection if potential participants will be recruited from a school, hospital, religious group. And it talks about approval. I chose like people from church, but people that I know. I chose people from library and coffee shop. So I don't need to do any approval with that, right?
Don't need to do any what? I'm sorry.
It's what number is it? 6G, where the risk of this of physical discomfort and all that. The letter G said host for data collection, and it says if potential participants will be recruited from school, hospital, religious group, professional association, or any other organization, that there have to be a approval application.
I'm only kind of hearing part of this, so let me kind of restate it, see if I'm hearing correctly. So you're talking about the recruitment process for people or the data process?
It's the data, and where the data is. The question before that is what resources are available to the participants. And then after that, the letter G said host for data collection. I think it's number 6.
Let me go there and look real quick. I just have a hard time here with my speakers. It's not on your end, it's on my speaker's end.
I'm sorry.
Oh, host for data collection?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in other words, where are you going to keep it? Are you going to keep it secured in a drive somewhere? Is it going to all be on paper? How are you going to hold that data?
So because it says something about have you included the approval with your application?
Oh, yeah. So if you're going to go to another organization area like a church, a school, or something like that, you have to have permission to recruit on their grounds. So if you're just meeting people, if you're just talking to your friends from church at a coffee shop, that's fine. But if you are going to the church to gather the data, then you have to have their permission. It's just saying you have to have permission is what that's saying.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. That's a good question because I actually just went through that with this school district study. And I'm trying to bring up the IRB one that I just did here.
I'm sorry.
Ooh. Yeah, that's important. Okay. So I'm going to share something with you really quick on the latest. I don't know if this is the latest one that I did or not, but it came up. So I was able to look at it. Life is good. Okay, so we had a lot of questions about that. And where is the study taking place? I'm going to go to recruit protection of participants. Okay, as facilitator, I will not have access to say who participates or does not participate in the surveys. It's clearly stated in any communication about the study. That's not the part that I wanted us to look at, though. Sorry about that. This isn't the one. I keep looking at the wrong one here. Just give me one quick second. Sorry about that.
I have one more question. I'm sorry.
Please do. That gives me time to look this up.
It's not with the form. I wanted to know, is the quiz about all chapters we read so far?
For some reason, I am having a very hard time hearing. Can you say that one more time? I want to put my ear kind of closer to the speaker here. Go ahead.
Okay. Is the quiz that we have to do about all the chapters that we read so far?
Yeah, and the way to take that quiz, it should be just on the week. And the way to do it is open book. Always remember, anything we do is open book. And if you use the electronic book, you can have search access, so you can be very quick. Okay.
But it's all the chapters that we had so far, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So here is, remember I said there's a link I was going to give you. Here it is. So what resources are available to participants if they may experience stress? So the part there that we're looking at, you're just going to send them to mytherapycouch.com. That's the resource right there. So if you look at this and it says risks, inherent, what is evidence of physical discomfort, respond to evidence of physical discomfort or emotional distress. I'm just going to show you. I don't even have to write it since I have it here. A referral to an online free counseling service at http://mytherapycouch.com is added to the informed consent form. So you can add that to your informed consent form if you like. And in this IRB package, you can send that to them. And here's what you write for how will researcher respond to the evidence? That's this question right here. Whoops, it was up there somewhere, we missed it. But there it is. Through informed consent, encouraging questions, letting participants know that they have to answer any question they choose and that they do not have to answer any question they choose. They may stop participation at any time with no consequences. And this is the actual IRB one that was successful that I went through for risks.
So do we need to attach anything to the consent form then?
No. And the one about how are you going to protect the data? No, data will not include any identifying data. What is identifying data? Identifying data is name, birth dates, anything that can identify me as a person. So what I generally do with participant one, and if I don't need any demographic data, if I'm not worried about birth dates, male, female, that sort of stuff, I don't even include it. You don't want to include information that you don't need. And here, how will you protect the security of the documents? Documents are kept on a secure server hosted by, and in this case, when I did it, it was Survey Gizmo that's hosting it. And that is how deep you go. You do not want to write paragraph upon paragraph of this stuff. It's that simple. And then let's see, what else do we have? The research methods, we talked about that. And then research plan. Just write dates as if you would be doing this. Don't get too involved with it. So any questions on this IRB full review form?
No, I think I've got it.
Okay. I didn't over or under explain it too much.
Perfect.
Hopefully and you want to just put it on here, and when you're done, save it. Save it with your name on it. Makes my life easy when you do that. And then just submit it. You will have a fairly high level of similarity index because this form has been turned in many times.
Okay.
So we're not concerned with the high level of similarity. Now, previously, some people even got 100%, and it wasn't a complete copy from the other forms that we use because they were much shorter, and our input pieces were very small. Now our input pieces are going to be a little bit bigger, so you shouldn't end up with 100% similarity. You can end up with 60 or so percent though, just so you know, and nobody should worry about that. So any questions before we call it a day?
My only question is the discussion question. I don't know why I have a difficult time with it this time. It says we can include terminology from our text. I looked through that book and I don't know if I overlook it. I don't know.
Okay, thank you for bringing that up, because as you notice, I forgot. So appreciate it.
I'll tell you, there wasn't a lot of terminology on pilot research at all.
Okay, so I didn't
Okay.
overlook because I'm looking and looking and it's like, okay, so I start Googling stuff.
Okay, so we're talking about the college research subjects, or what are you talking about last week?
No, this week, college research
Okay.
subject.
The big one here is college age students are easier to get data from, especially if they're in college because they're grouped together. So what are the issues with that? Why would that be an issue? Would that skew results? How do you think about that? If you go to the University of wherever, is that population, can we transfer whatever we get from that population to the rest of the population, or is that just for that local population? All university students or all people? Because you have to worry about if the data that you're receiving is actually a sample of all the population or just that small part. So what is the issue with using college age students?
Okay.
And, talk about some of the difficulties and include terminology from your text. The whole reason why that's in there is they want you to start thinking / talking like a researcher. So you don't have to have a separate area that says terminology from text. Just utilize whatever that is. So
Okay.
just talk like a researcher. So you're going to, is this transferable? What is it? What are the issues? That's all they're talking about.
Okay.
And the best researchers that I know don't talk above anybody's head. You know, so don't think you have to be super academic. The best researchers I know talk so everybody understands, and they understand well, and they understand clearly. It's not about the words that you use or anything else. It's about how clearly you can communicate what you're doing. That's why I say, talk to me like I'm in the 3rd grade, because I want you to be able to talk to clearly, and nobody in here is going to talk down to a 3rd grader either. So that's kind of important. But that's the deal. The best researchers that I know are able to convey what they're doing very clearly, very succinctly, and to any audience.
Okay.
So use it if you're struggling on what to write or how to write. Use it as a practice to convey to a 3rd grader. So practice it on being very clear, because making things simple and clear is hard. So use it as practice.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Does that help, or do we need to go a little bit deeper into that?
No, it's okay.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for showing up. Any questions before we go? Debbie?
I'm good, thank you, sir. I appreciate the extra help.
You're welcome. I'm glad you all are able to show up, and I appreciate it. So have a fantastic week, and I look forward to our discussions.
You too, take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.